like to welcome all of you here today. If you'd join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance, I would appreciate it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. By way of introduction, to my far left, we have County Administrator Clark Schroeder, Commissioner Huxley, myself, Commissioner Gold, Commissioner Boyce, Council Huddle, and Assistant Administrator, well, I don't know what your title is, John Jesuit. So we'll move on with the agenda. First of all, do any of you have any amendments to the agenda? Yes.
Madam Chair, I'd like to remove item 4B, equipment purchases, to the regular agenda, as we wanted to adjust one of the items and take it off that approval.
Okay, why don't we put that right below, make it right above 5, right before 5.
Okay.
Any other amendments to the agenda? Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 4E, Vietnam War Memorial, just have a couple quick comments on that update. And also want to have a moment of silence for officers that we've lost and soldiers that we've lost. If I may, we're at 66 now for police officers killed in the line of duty for 2018. That is compared to 135 total for 2017. So it seems to be a little bit less of a pace, which
always good.
I think is good news. So yes, if we may just have a quick moment of silence.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all I have.
Okay, so you want 4E taken out also?
Yes.
Okay. Any other amendments to the agenda?
Yes, I'd like 4A and 4C pulled out.
Okay. Well, I think we only have one left in the consent agenda. So, do we have a motion to move the consent calendar or the agenda as amended?
Chair, I move to approve the agenda as amended in that we're removing from the consent calendar items 4A, B, C, and E.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. I think we've already discussed. Call for the question.
Aye.
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 Okay. Public comments. To begin with, we have Lucy Labonte.
Good morning. I am here representing the League of Women Voters of Curry County today, and I will just read a statement and I'll give you guys a copy. The League of Women Voters of Oregon adopted a position in May of 2017 on civil discourse. The position is to promote civil discourse through action and education for all government bodies, staff, and citizens for the purpose of improved public policy decisions and processes. Civil discourse means, at a minimum, mutually respectful, courteous, constructive, and orderly communication. The League of Women Voters of Curry County has invited Marge Easley, League of Women Voters of Oregon's Civil Discourse Portfolio Chair and past president, to hold a forum on civil discourse on September 13th at 7 p.m. at the Chetco Library. We cordially invite our county commissioners and all elected officials in Curry County to attend. This meeting is open to the public, and the public is encouraged to attend. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Give you guys each a copy so you can mark your calendars.
I'll be there. You're going to mediate or facilitate?
I think Marge is capable of doing everything. We'll see what you decide.
Thanks, Commissioner.
She's in Japan right now. I actually got a call from her this morning, and she said, "Oh my God, I think I gave you a butt
So
call."
is this going to go into the record?
Okay, Gordon Clay?
I'm assuming so.
Thank you very much.
I'm assuming you want this on the website? On our notes?
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Your stuff's here? Is that yours? Commissioners and community members, for the record, my name is Gordon Clay. I have a lived experience around suicide and have been a suicide prevention advocate from Brookings, Oregon for at least the last 5 years, encouraging others to reach out for help. I apologize for my early departure last time. I had a stress-related stroke several years ago, and I was being triggered. You might remember back in January or February, I recommended to the commissioners that the county establish the Curry County Suicide Prevention Council, like a number of other Oregon counties have done, with a board selection of stakeholders to which I would add peer counselors and people with lived experience as voting members. I understand that the Curry Community Health Mental Health Advisory Council has been formed to do a similar task. I had hoped that they would address the issue I brought up last time, and draft a protocol at their July 26th meeting, only to find out that that meeting had been canceled. Upon arriving home, I found this statement on the Curry Community Health's own website: 24/7 crisis response services. A crisis coordinator is on call to provide triage services for people in psychiatric crisis in Curry County. The crisis coordinator responds to all calls, conducts assessment at Curry General Hospital, makes recommendations to medical staff, and assists in connecting the client to relevant services locally and statewide. Crisis walk-in appointments are also available at all clinic locations during business hours. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, please call 877-519-9322. What appears to be CCH's protocol on the crisis line doesn't seem to be known by the staff at 5th Street. If nothing else, the staff should have instructed Pat to call CCH crisis instead of sending someone in crisis on a 15-hour wild goose chase and expect them to safely navigate across the Thomas Creek Bridge twice in a day. My request to the commissioners is that they see to it that who is ever responsible for mental health in Curry County immediately develop and distribute to all stakeholders a suggested protocol that includes one where a person in crisis could go immediately within Curry County for a risk evaluation, diagnosis, and possible drug prescription, including the establishment's name, address, contact name, phone number, and hours. 2, what to do after those hours. And 3, if those services aren't available in Curry County, where the closest services are. We have more people killed themselves in Oregon this year than ever before. We had a record we matched the number that killed themselves last year, the highest ever. We had that 2 other years. How much longer are we going to be talking about what to do?
Thank you, Gordon.
Thank you. And I've got a handout for you here.
Gordon, thank you for all you do.
Okay, David Barnes.
Good morning, I'm David Barnes. Couple of things this morning. I'm a member of the CAF, Curry Annex Fishermen, and I just want to let everybody know that our fishing derby started this morning and runs through Saturday afternoon. There's over 200 people have entered into the derby this year. On my way by this morning, I went through the docks. I went down by the port, and I noticed there's trucks and cars over there from Nevada and Idaho and California. Saw someone out the other day from Alaska. So, you know, this is something that's real good for our community. It's bringing in revenue, it's bringing in people. It brings some notoriety to us, and I just wanted to let you know about that. Secondly, on my on the list, once again, I need to express my disappointment that there's another agenda full of fluff and nothing really happening. You're going to talk about your public records policy. Mr. Schroeder wants to change the way that you do your agendas again. Come on, people, do something. You know, please just do something. Especially, you know, you're here, you're supposed to be creating long-term plans and doing things. Looks like you're just doing more of the same pushing papers around that Mr. Hitt did before you. You know, and that's a damn shame. And lastly, you know, rumor out, I spent last week over in a hospital in Grants Pass, and the rumor that got to me on the street out there is that Commissioner Gold, you don't intend to continue in this chair if Mr. Pash is elected, and I'd like to know if you're willing to commit to serving out your term to us right now, and if not, you know, please resign and let somebody in there who wants to do the job do the job. You know, you got the feather in your hat, you can call yourself a commissioner. We need someone who's gonna work, not just sit there and shuffle papers around. So please, once again, I know it's getting old listening to me say this to you, Bam, but please step down. Give somebody else a job who actually wants to do some work. Thank you.
Connie Hunter?
I'm Connie Hunter, and I'm a proud citizen of South Curry County. I wanted to talk a little bit today about the VA Healthcare Summit, but before I get going, I want to be sure and address a couple things for Gordon Clay, because we are in this together and we've worked together for a while. I wasn't aware of a July 26th meeting of the Curry Community Health, Mental Health and Addictions Advisory Board meeting, because there was one previous to that, and the only one that I know is scheduled is the August 7th meeting, and you're going to come, aren't you, Gordon? 9 a.m. at the 5th Street location. Aaron Porter and our Curry Community Health Mental Health Advisory Board are working very hard on developing peer support programs, and that was one of the things that came forward out of our first Veteran Suicide Awareness Town Hall meeting, was to really push for local support for peer support training and special individual one-on-one counseling for veterans at the local level. And that's something that we're going to address at the VA Healthcare Summit September 21st, and it'll be held at Southwestern Oregon Community College from 9 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon. But beyond that, Gordon, I want to invite you to attend our listening sessions, and any other veterans out there will have 2 listening sessions, one for female veterans and one for male veterans, so that you can tell your truth. What's missing? That's the question. What was missing when you got out of the military, and what's still missing? And I think you have some straight and important answers, and thank you for taking the time to sit down with Jane after the last Board of Commissioners meeting, and that article in the newspaper was very, very important on suicide and what we have to do to address that. I'll also be speaking at the next Advanced Health Care meeting, and I suspect you'll be there too, Gordon, and I know we can really grow the things that need to be grown with the right attitude and the right encouragement, and maybe if you have a little time, consider being on that advisory board with the resignation of Captain Mick Espinoza as the chair of that advisory board, and I was the seated vice president. I've been asked, at least in the short term, and we'll see if they dot that I and cross that T, to have me be the chair of that advisory board. So I know that with all that energy headed in the right direction, we're going to get some things done this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Connie, when I decided to run, 2 or 3 different people come up to me and said, "Are you up on serious mental health issues and the changes there?" And I go, "Oh, I had to admit that, you know, I need to do some serious research there." So night before last, the sirens went off. On the 5th one, I'm in the office at 6:30, and went over to the sheriff's office, and the sirens went a total of 9 times. Ended up being a false alarm, but 2 folks with obvious mental illness issues came to the sheriff's office. It's okay. We're concerned. Do we run the higher ground right now? You know, and so we were able. Mayor showed up. Mayor Popoff showed up.
Okay, I think we need to move on.
We were able to.
Commissioner Boyce.
But I appreciate you've made a difference there, and it's just wonderful.
Okay, we're going to move on.
Point of order, Chair.
What's your point?
My point is that you are the chair. You are chairing these meetings, in control of these meetings, and
Thank you,
it
Carly,
is
very much.
It
You're welcome.
is unacceptable. Well, it's your decision whether you can be overridden and people can comment as they see fit over your recognition of other people to comment.
Okay, let's
You need
move
to
on.
keep coaching her, sir.
Okay, excuse me?
I don't think she needs coaching.
Okay, we're going to be moving to the consent calendar. The only thing that's left here in the consent calendar is to appoint Connie Hunter to Goose Curry Housing Authority. Do we have a motion to do so? This is under the consent calendar.
I'll motion to approve the consent calendar as amended.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Any discussion? Call for the question?
Aye.
Aye. Do you want to vote, Commissioner Boyce?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on, the things that were taken out of the consent calendar, let's just do them in order. 4A, minutes for the workshop, July 25th. Commissioner Huxley, I believe you wanted that out.
Yes, I reviewed the minutes. I want to hand in, we've handed this in before, but clearly they need to be handed in and put into the record again. This is the minutes and record keeping. I'll hand this to Administrator Schroeder. The minimum requirements for minutes and record keeping of minutes of the governing or public bodies in Oregon. I reviewed the minutes. There were some in agenda item 7. There was not even, that did not even scratch the surface as far as what was discussed on the executive session. There was no mention whatsoever of attempting to go into executive session and what was encountered. There's no consistency in this set of minutes as far as following the minimum requirements. None whatsoever, and to me, they're unacceptable.
So it was my understanding the minimum requirements were to make sure that motions were there, how it came out. We had already decided that we were not going to do a whole lot of discussion stuff.
Back, please.
So
Let me read what I'm including into the record. It's been provided before. The minimum shall include, that's not may or might, shall include members present, the motions, proposals, resolutions, orders, ordinances, and measures proposed and their disposition, the results of all votes, the vote of each member, the substance of any discussion on any matter.
okay, so you're
I'm saying it's not, doesn't
okay,
even
your
scratch the
opposition
surface.
is that the discussion wasn't.
It's not following the minimum requirements.
Okay, but
Thank you.
I'm just looking at your opposition that
Correct.
the discussion wasn't.
It's not, and there was one additional point on agenda item 10. It did have the incorrect, and I communicated this to Administrator Schroeder, it did have the incorrect authority cited in the original agenda, and in the minutes that has been changed, and you don't change the wording
true.
of the original agenda in the minutes. It was incorrect there, it has to remain incorrect.
Okay, so what would be your?
Come back with a satisfactory,
Okay, so just put this off and
minutes of that meeting.
okay.
Chair, if I may.
Commissioner Boyce?
I'm going to be in opposition to that. We have, once again, we have the video backup. If the public has any concern that this wasn't comprehensive or detailed enough, so to have additional staff time is just beyond my comprehension to go back, and then it may take 3 or 4 times. it's just really a sad state. So yes, ma'am, I am in opposition, and I think the minutes are adequate, more than adequate. Thank you.
Administrator
We have so
Schroeder?
Madam Chair, I would make a recommendation that you approve the minutes as written.
So moved, Madam Chair.
I'll second that. Further discussion? Call for the question.
No.
Aye. I remember to vote this time. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Item 4B, equipment purchase.
Okay, 4B, we have, there is 4 pieces of equipment on this agenda. We talked about at the workshop last week on further review and feedback from commissioners. We would like to pull the sweeper off this approval because we feel that Roadmaster Christensen thinks he can get a better deal on a used one, so he's negotiating with somebody to get a used one. One of the main concerns on a piece of equipment like this, it consistently breaks down and it costs the county a lot of money when we deploy people 2 hours away with a crew of 6, the equipment breaks down, and then they have to basically quit work and then drive back and then go back there the next day. You're adding thousands of dollars to the operation by just having this old piece of equipment be there. The other pieces of equipment, I would recommend that we approve the other 3 pieces of equipment. That would be the backhoe loader, that would be the crack sealer, and what was the other one? And the mini, the Cat mini loader. You know, per the 5-year capital improvement plan and per the budget committee approval of these of the budgetary items for these replacements.
So do we have a motion to approve those 3 items, is it?
That would be my recommendation. And then if you do have a motion with that and a second, then Roadmaster Christensen would be able to discuss that motion.
The used, okay.
And
So do we have a motion to that effect for the 3 items?
If we could you do them item by item?
Okay, so we
and
have the
and when I
back
say
loader.
item, right, and so I think what you have is a piece of equipment and a trailer as one item, a piece of equipment and a trailer as another item. I think, but
Okay,
the
can you-
issue that I have is,
For the minutes?
well, no, not for the minutes, but
Too late.
how did we competitively or otherwise procure these items in conjunction with the state contracting law and things like that? We've got the end result of that process here. Do we have any description of the process that we went to
As
get
I
these
recall, Richard kind of went into that. He said that, go ahead and tell us, Richard, that we
Madam Chair.
used the
We went
state's
through
bidding.
the process of national bidding and state bidding through NJPA pricing, where they do that for the government ahead of time, that we could buy directly through that pricing. And also state pricing through the state of Oregon, where they go through the process of bidding that item out, that it's already at the lowest bid that we
So
can.
we're assured that it's the lowest by going through the state, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. So can you give us a rundown of exactly what we need to have in this motion to purchase?
I'd be partial to
Yes, motion.
Mr. Huddle's suggestion that we make a motion to purchase the, just take the first one on there, which is the backhoe loader with pavement breaker.
Okay, we'll do each one individually, is what
Each
you're
one
suggesting?
individually, and then basically if you end up with a motion and a second, then you would open it up for discussion concerning that.
Okay, good enough. Do we have a motion for the backhoe loader with the pavement breaker? Are we what?
Are we going to have a comment and discussion and question period here before we make a motion?
Well, that.
Well, the discussion's after the motion.
Yeah, so if there isn't a second and a motion, if there's not a motion and a second, then the issue just dies with no discussion.
Thank you.
Okay, so do we have a motion to purchase the backhoe loader with pavement breaker? Commissioner Huxley?
I have a comment, I don't have a motion. I don't believe that it is correct that we cannot, if this board is in agreement, have a discussion before we have a motion and a second.
That's my point. Thank you.
Right. So we're looking for a motion and
No,
then a
no,
second, then we can do the discussion.
No, it's my position that I don't see that there's an authority that says this board may not have a discussion prior
Oh,
to
certainly.
having a motion and a second.
Okay,
And that's my preference.
okay, that's fine. Is there any, do you have any questions?
Well,
of-
I will take what county council had said and go further in these documents. While we had a discussion at the prior workshop, and he pointed out some of the things that were not included. It's fine to say that we talked about it at a workshop, but I see nothing in these documents that says it meets, if we're not going to have this set go out for competitive bid, that we've have not reduced in writing that position that needs to be, in my opinion, included in this document, which is ultimately, if we pass it, it's going to be preserved in perpetuity. That's going to show that we follow the proper competitive bidding laws, which I don't think this shows at this point in time. It's fine to talk about it, but it needs to be reduced in writing. And if there's going to be a signature authority, I didn't see that on these agreements either, but I don't have them in front of me here. But anyway, it needs to be reduced in writing that we have met the minimum requirements and providing the authority that shows that we have. I think that needs to be an integral part of this. That's my opinion. I won't
So,
support it without it, but that's my opinion.
okay, Richard, what would it take to do that?
I could come back to the next Board of Commissioners meeting with those documents.
Okay. Commissioner Huxley?
Is county council in agreement with that general position?
Well, the general position is that the state law, when you purchase something over $150,000, you have to go out to bid unless there's an exception. Richard Christensen has identified an exception on the record when we are, and he's saying that we are taking bids from the state-approved procurement list of companies. And again, that wasn't in the materials. I think by him saying that on the record, that would satisfy that contracting requirement. So that's really the only issue I have, is I was expecting more explanation in the materials, but he's filled that in with his verbal explanation.
So you're okay with going ahead and purchasing the equipment as we follow through here?
He doesn't
Council
weigh in.
Huddle?
He doesn't weigh in on that, does he?
Well, we want to make sure everything's legal. I think
Okay.
that's important.
Thank you. But I have a comment when it's.
Right. So what Richard is saying, that under Section 6 of our contracting rules, A sub 4 sub 2, contract for purchase of goods and services where competitive bids for materials have been obtained by other federal or state agencies. So again, I prefer to have that type of thing written in the staff report from staff. I believe we've followed the rules, but we can do a better job documenting them and making it clear to everyone that we're following them.
Okay, Louise?
Louise Kallstrom, County Accountant. There's two possibilities here, and I've seen them both. I do have a quote form, and it says at the top that if it's a state contract number, all you need to do is write the company in reference to state contract number for our auditors to show that we have followed our procurement laws. The other way that I have seen it done is just like I'm looking at the attachments to this, I don't know, is it Chris backhoe? If you have a quote from the company and it is a state contract, you could just have their letterhead and it says regarding quote number 14886-02. After that, it could say state contract number, whatever that state contract number is, to show that it is being purchased under. So there's two ways to go. One is just for him to fill out the quote form with that number on it, or for have Kat Peterson redo this letter with that. And if he just fills out the quote form, puts the state contract number on it, maybe we could bring this back later today after lunch, so that it's not delayed that much.
Okay, could we have a motion with the stipulation that this is produced by this afternoon when we
still waiting.
sign it?
Excuse me, Madam Chair. I'm still waiting for chances to
Oh,
quick
okay,
comment.
sure.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Chair Gold. My concerns and comments are maybe just a little more general overall. The people we represent, when they see the district attorney's office shrinking down, sheriff's department shrinking down, and the road department perhaps increasing in size and responsibility and growth, I don't have an opinion, but I am looking out for what their interests are, and so my sense is just to slow it down a little bit, not be in a hurry today. But this is $700,000 worth of equipment purchases, and I'm not arguing that it's legitimate or valid, but my concern is that you've been here 3 months, 4 months, whatever, and I think you're doing a wonderful job. But my concern is emphasizing here is what it might be saying to the people in the county where our priorities are, which is, you just had public comment a minute ago, our priorities in order. And lastly, Chair Gold, I have 11 priorities that I'm going to give during Commissioner comment period there that I think are critical for us to immediately look at. And road department growth, if I'm understanding that correctly, that's not in the top 11. It might be at some point. So thank you for letting me comment.
Administrator Schroeder?
I would recommend that we table this till August 15th. Staff will document and come up with, for the record, more documentation on that. So that would be my recommendation.
If I may, could I
Commissioner
just add?
Boyce?
Thank you again. Could I just add to that? I think you have a business plan that justifies your recommendations here coming before the board. If you could also offer that, so we could in turn have that available to the public, so this is why we're supporting this based on this plan.
Yes,
Wasn't
we
that part of
could
the
do that.
budget?
I could talk about that a little bit right now if you want, or I could wait till.
I'd like to have it written. Either way is fine with me.
Why don't we,
but I would
we'll
table
put it together. We'll put it together and
Yes.
send it out to commissioners with plenty of time to read it.
Okay.
And do that. And that was done at the budget committee already once, but we'll just put it together again.
Additional review will not hurt,
Okay.
in my opinion.
So do we have a motion to, yes,
Because I thought I saw
Yes.
county council raise his hand also to speak.
Sure. And again, the only reason I did speak was to make sure it was on the record that we referred to Section 6 sub 2 of our own local contracting rules to identify our exemption from competitive bidding that we were following. I didn't see it in the materials. There was reference to, you know, the state and national procurement list, which is exactly what subsection 6 sub A sub 4 sub 2 of our contracting rules say. That's the only reason I spoke up, to make sure that on the record we had that in there, and because the road department has followed that, I think, and now that we have it on the record, I think it doesn't need approval or continuation for that reason. But I just wanted to make sure that while we were here taking a vote, so it passes the minimum legal requirements under our procurement laws, and that's my only concern. I've addressed it, and so I don't have anything else for the board. Whether you want to continue to vote on it today is up to you.
okay. So, pleasure of the board. Would you prefer continuing this till August 15th?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Call for the question. Yes.
I think, just to confirm my understanding, that Administrator Schroeder, you still prefer to bring this back with some of the additional suggestions too, as far as documentation? Am I
Yep.
interpreting that correctly?
Yep. We'll
I
package it up.
will-
We'll package it up not only for.
Is that going to delay some critical path things? That's my next question for the roadmaster.
No, it's, maybe we won't be as efficient and as effective as I would like to be doing our current maintenance programs. And we'll have more cost with maintaining equipment as it breaks. But, so that's just the way it is. And so the thing is that I'll provide the previous roadmaster's 5-year equipment plan. The 5-year equipment plan I had at the budget meetings, and also what the goals and are of the road department.
Before you leave, can we hear a little bit about that piece of used equipment you were bidding on?
Yes, that was the Bros broom, and that's the piece of equipment that was not on the approved 5-year equipment replacement plan. And it was brought to my attention that in the last 3 years, the number was told me was 30, but I did the numbers. It's $28,000 we spent on it, and we need to spend more money on it to bring it up to working condition. And so almost $30,000 in the last 3 years. Last year, we had to repair it 25 times. Some of these calls were way out in the field, some of them, but regardless, 25 times the shop had to repair it, maintain it, put money into it.
So, and when you're saying $30,000 or close to it, that does not include the time that employees had to put towards this or travel and all of that?
No, it does not include lost time and effort. And when we're not accomplishing our jobs, then it puts other jobs behind. And it's really causing us to be inefficient. And
so would you say that the cost could possibly be double the $30,000 by the time you add in the time, or is that
yes, I would say so.
Speculative?
I would say so. And just for instance, last 2 days we did 3 miles of chip seal on Checo River Road. We have a 44-year-old paving box. The brakes locked up on it one time. It probably took 20 minutes to get it going, but I had 18 people with their hands in their pockets while that was being done. And you take 18 times maybe an average of $20 an hour. There's a lot of money there in production. And so, and then it had another problem where the belt drive seized up on it, and there went another 20 minutes. So it adds up.
Right.
And so, but when you take all our equipment, our fleet is fairly old.
So that's really like 6 hours every time that 20 minutes happens if you've got those 18.
If you compound it, yes.
Yeah. So.
And so.
Mr. Boyce?
How many employees do in the road department? 21?
No, it's, I looked at the update of the road fund and I saw it said 21, but that's incorrect. It's still 19 and a half.
Thank you. But it didn't have 18 people at the same time standing idle waiting for that 20 minutes.
Correct.
Job.
Correct. Well, the thing is, I hired a contract flagger to be there. I also brought back 3 retired employees with 60 years experience that worked those 2 days to help us with this program and to make it successful. And we have a new team. Half of our employees out there never did a chip seal before. The other half hadn't performed that work in 2 years. And this project, from our engineering standpoint, is the best project that we have ever completed, with its compaction and embedment with those 2 pneumatic tire rollers you approved the road department buying last month was huge. Plus, we changed operations where we put a steel drum roller on it per the new standards of chip seal. And it came out like an AC overlay. We expect to get 10, 15 years of service out of this chip seal we just performed. And so that's the whole thing with buying this equipment. It's not just upfront cost, it's the long-term cost with losing money, but also providing a higher quality product at the end that lasts longer and preserving the roads.
So back to the piece of used equipment, do you have any idea what the cost is going to be compared to the new, or?
No, I don't. They're working on that number right now.
Okay, great. Okay, any other questions?
No, that was just good clarification. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you so much, and we'll get back with you, I guess, August 15th.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Okay, moving on to 4C, that's the audit engagement letter.
Yes, I had requested to pull that, as far as the signature on that. And it's basically the same concerns that I had for the other equipment as far as, is it meeting the contract? I know we've talked about it, we've approved it, but I just didn't think that I saw the signatures
Oh, okay.
for approval of this, or that there was a signature authority to someone that it had met the contracting rules.
I do, Louise Colstrom, County Accountant. On the agenda routing slip that I filled out, the proposed agenda item title was Curry County Audit Engagement Agreement and Signature Authority to County Administrator. But that did not get on the consent calendar as the total title of this item.
So,
So, Commissioner
so
Huxley?
that was, because I didn't see it. Would you clarify, would you say that again, so I'm clear?
On the agenda item routing slip, first line says proposed agenda item title.
Okay.
I put Curry County
Okay,
Audit
okay.
Engagement Agreement and Signature Authority to County Administrator.
Okay.
But the title did not, the full title that I
It didn't get
suggested did not
from
come
point A to
across
point B.
onto the consent agenda.
Okay.
So does that take care of your questions?
Well, it takes care of the concern.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the audit engagement letter?
Chair, I'll motion to approve the auto engagement letter, given the explanation here.
Okay, do we have a second? I'll second that. Any further discussion?
Madam Chair, I have a letter here from Peter Bejarano addressed to us as commissioners, referencing a letter from Commissioner Huxley. Just read the first line and maybe Commissioner Huxley can shed some light for me. This subject is being addressed with you here under separate cover and aside from the Curry County governing body. Commissioner Huxley, what does that,
Point
under
of
separate
order.
cover, what does that
Point of
mean?
order,
What's
Chair.
your point?
Well, my point is that this has nothing whatsoever to do with this engagement letter and this agenda item.
So you don't want to answer my question? What does it mean under separate cover?
Let's take a vote whether we want to continue this discussion. I say no, we're off the agenda.
I say no also, we're off topic. Thank you,
You don't
Chair.
have to answer the question.
Thank
That's
you,
a
Chair.
shocker.
Okay,
Thank you, Madam
so,
Chair.
excuse me, back to the motion. Any further discussion on the audit engagement letter? Barring none, I'll call for the question.
Aye.
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 Okay, and then 4E, Vietnam War Memorial Support Letter. I believe Commissioner Boyce, you wanted that pulled.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have some exceptional war memorials and dedicated areas within the state, but we're a little weak on the Vietnam veterans memorials. And so we have a great proportion of Vietnam veterans, as you know, in Curry County. And so the work they're doing at the Capitol, I've been there several times, perhaps you have as well. It's kind of an amendment or addition to the statue of 3 soldiers. And so it's kind of the forgotten war. You see nationally what's going on with the Korea, thank God the people, the remains of soldiers there being returned to the United States. And so if this letter to support Mr. Bates and his efforts for the capital improvement is really an incredible opportunity for all the states. So I assume that we're going to approve this and support, and Administrator Schroeder wrote a very appropriate letter. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, any other further discussion? Commissioner Huxley?
Well, my questions, because I wanted to pull this also, in the agenda routing slip, it has no contact person. In the files attached, it has no files attached, so I don't, and then I read a letter that I don't really even know who, a matter of fact, there was one word I had to look up because I didn't know, wasn't positive of the meaning. So who put it on the agenda? And clearly the agenda routing slip was not properly completed, and who wrote the letter?
So, Madam Chair?
Mr. Schroeder?
Actually, that was an oversight on my part. When I'm looking at the agenda routing slip, I clearly did not complete that. I wrote it. I must not have saved the draft because I remember writing this saying that Commissioner Boyce had requested this to be put on. I remember putting the date on. I remember doing those. I don't think I apologize for that. I obviously did not save the draft correctly, or I just forwarded the wrong draft to Mr. Jesuit. So you are correct, Mr. Huxley. That was not done correctly. And the letter basically.
I can read it if.
The letter basically I basically took language from another county that Commissioner Boyce had forwarded. Another county had already done this. A number of counties have done it actually, and so I basically just took that the wording from them.
If I may, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you. Dear Commissioners, we are a group of Oregon residents committed to establishing a Vietnam War memorial on the Oregon State Capitol grounds. In our capital city of Salem, there are monuments and memorials that honor the Oregonians who served in the Civil War, Spanish, American, World War I, World War II, Korean War, and Iraqi wars. There is not a statewide Vietnam War memorial that honors all Oregonians. There's one in, I think, in Hillsborough. I could have that wrong, but it's not. We need more. Quickly, it is time we correct this oversight. We need a memorial that will honor all who served and remember the Gold Star families of Oregon as well. 710 Oregon warriors died in Vietnam. 4 Oregon families lost 2 sons. There were Oregonians who were prisoners of war and missing in action. It is forecast that we are losing 8 Oregon Vietnam veterans per day. We can't wait any longer. A Vietnam War memorial is needed quickly. Will you join us? Will you join Senators James I. Manning, Representative Brad Witt, Commissioner Paul Savas, and the Clackamas County Board of County Commissioners by lending your name to this worthy project with an endorsement? Attached, please find a copy of the Clackamas, etc. For more information, Steve Bates, President. I think we all received that letter.
Yes, we did.
Thank you.
And
I
read
I'm going to
that,
say again, Administrator Schroeder quickly handled this and was in full support, and I appreciate his promptness on this. Thank you.
So do we have a motion to accept the Vietnam War Memorial Support
So moved,
Letter?
Madam Chair.
Do we have a second?
You're saying accept the letter as
Just
written.
accept
Is
the
that
letter
correct?
as written.
Which is not what Commissioner Boyce just read.
Right, he read the email asking for the letter.
Okay, I'll
It's a
second.
collective countywide
Okay,
approach.
so we have a second. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, no discussion. Call for the question.
Aye.
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 Okay, so we will all sign the Vietnam War Memorial Support Letter. Okay, next we've got personnel action forms. I don't know whether Julie Swift is here, but maybe Administrator Schroeder, you can.
These are just more information for your sake as we go through. She wants to have the board informed of the personnel and actions that's been happening at the HR level. So no action is required.
So just a matter of information.
Yes.
Okay, moving on. Item 6, administrative actions and appointments. Do we have anything going there?
Nobody to appoint.
Okay. Commissioner Huxley?
Well, we've got 5 minutes to talk about it.
But we're not going to use it.
Oh.
So there.
You can go home 5 minutes early.
Okay, it looks like there's no public hearings, no old business, except for new public records policy, rescinding prior public records policy. Council Huddle, can you just kind of give us a brief summary?
Thanks, Madam Chair. And so these materials are found on page 69 through 72 or 72 of your packet. But what was left out of the packet was the policy itself. But essentially, the staff report will explain, and this policy has been a work in progress for some time. It started with former County Administrator Hitt, and we have not updated our county public records policy since 2012. I think in the most recent legislative session, there were significant changes to the Oregon public records laws that require all local governments to have a policy. So what the new policy does is 3 things. It revises the old policy to comply with changes in state law. It does create a single point of contact for public staff to process public and staff to process requests, and then it creates some new forms for requests, acknowledgement, and appeals if necessary. The long and the short of it is, in our old, the state laws required certain timelines. In the old law, it was just reasonable time, and now the state law has some specific timelines and specific steps, and also it identifies a position called a public record custodian. What this does then is it establishes, and this is a choice for the board, and myself, Mr. Schroeder, Mr. Hitt before him, and then Tom Huxley liaised on this as well. The real choice for the board on this is primarily the creation of the county public record custodian. Our policy has it identified as the county council. I think that's okay. It will be a significant amount of work, but I think my office can handle it. And the flow chart just kind of says how it works. There's interest in a record. They obtain, and we've created a form to request a record. The public fills that form out, they deliver it, whether it goes to any department or to my department. If it goes to a department who's not the public record custodian, that department forwards it, so that there's a single point of contact. In our prior public records policy, it's not here in the record, but there was a matrix, and it had about 4 or 5 different bodies that the member of the public would have to try to figure out who to go to get a record. And here they just go to one place, and we'll figure it out for them. So we think it's easier that way. And then there's a 5-day acknowledgement request, and we can seek a $25 deposit optional. I think that needs to be amended on the flow chart on page 70, that we're not going to actually always seek the 25. And then the requester can either pay the fees, and if they don't, the request is void. And then if they do pay the fees, then we review the documents, redact as necessary, and send them that 10 days from payment of the fees, or explain the inability to do so. Then it rescinds, so then there's an order adopting the new policy and rescinding the old policy. So unless there's any questions from the board, that's all I really had. My understanding is this has been discussed multiple different occasions prior with the board, both at work sessions and county meetings, and it was continued at the last county meeting. It was presented. It's also been presented to the department heads in some version or another. So that's really all I had, unless there's questions.
Commissioner Boyce?
Just at the bottom of that first page, if the public wants information and they want to just simply ask to have that information given to them, sometimes it wouldn't require going through this whole process, including charging them 25. That would be the 4-page document, which is good work, by the way. That would be the only amendment or slight addition that I would recommend, is that they don't have to go through the process if somebody's willing to just give it to them quickly and keep it simple. That's all I have, Madam Chair. Oh, except you have a new title now, Public Records Custodian. Do I have that correct?
Well, if the board adopts
additional
this,
title.
if the board adopts this, that's how it would work out.
Thank you.
So, question, Council Huddle. Commissioner Boyce's suggestion, what is your take on that?
Well, we don't, the public records law only has sets the minimum or maximum requirement. We have to acknowledge the request within 5 days. And so what we try to do is explain to people that because of that, we intend to allow ourselves the entire 5 days, whether we need it or not. But I think the concept he's talking about would have to be handled on a case-by-case basis. So we'll just see. It's hard to write in to the policy an exception like that. And I think in the staff report it says that our existing policy, because we did things like that in the existing policy, and it led to some inconsistent results and some identified violations of disclosure of certain material. So what we're really trying to do here is to make sure we have a screening or a filter on the information that goes out, to make sure we're not disclosing any information that shouldn't be disclosed in every instance. So if we can, it may be that, you know, the referral to the public record custodian, perhaps it could be a verbal, and then the document could be reviewed by me prior to approval of going out. But I think we'll come up with a way to work on that. But in the meantime, I'm not recommending any exceptions be created at this time, and that instead, over time, we study, you know, those circumstances and then come back to the board with some exceptions.
That's good with me.
Okay, any other discussion? Commissioner Huxley?
I think, Council, you referenced the staff report. I didn't see a staff.
I'm sorry, I meant the memo, the AGRS, the brief background or note.
Because there were two different AGRSs also, with a little different wording, which I didn't quite follow.
Oh, well, that would be a question for John Jesuit, but I sent in both AGRSs. One was supposed to be replacing the other, so.
Okay.
My hunch would be the AGRS found on page 69 would be the one that I submitted most recently, so.
Commissioner Huxley?
Okay. On this, I did.
I'm not preparing the agendas, I'm just submitting.
Oh, no, I was just curious. You know, it started when you
Yeah.
mentioned the memo, and I didn't see a memo. That's the reason
Staff
for my
report,
original,
yes, I just
you know.
meant the AGRS says that if you don't have a memo, then the brief background
In
is the staff report.
communications, and they were, you know, significant that I had with county council on this, on multiple drafts here. I think I agreed with his point, and even though it's been addressed, can you start making exceptions? I'm not speaking for him, but I think the general conversation was, as soon as you start making exceptions, you open up, where does it stop? And that was the reason, and I agree. You know, I agreed for that reason. That was his reason for doing this.
Well,
this
I just want to
way.
make sure that
Okay,
we're doing
yeah.
everything legally. So.
It's just a matter of people who have been accustomed to just walking in and getting this or getting that, you know, are now going to not be able to just walk in and get this or that. But I did have a couple of questions for county council on page 2. Down under the fee estimate, reference the link, and I know we've talked about this, but we still need what comprises the data on this link. We still haven't seen that. So as far as the actual rates.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay, well, if I'm not mistaken, that link already exists in our webpage.
I think, though, that was for all different things, not just for, you know, I think that's
Correct,
the fee
but-
schedule that you're referencing,
But yes,
correct?
and the public record fees are included in that fee schedule.
So it would be a matter of,
Looking at the
Still-
fee schedule and finding the public record fees on our
or
website.
having a separate pulling out, because I don't think you want to get into a fee schedule and see what it's going to cost. You know, we've talked about this before, what it's going to cost for this or that has nothing to do with really a public records request, just to get a simple,
So what you're saying
reduced.
is you want everything in the public records
just
request
pull the
area.
applicable rates from that and have that as this
So the
link
public
for
doesn't
the-
have to go 15
for-
different
well,
places.
and it's called the county public records fee.
Okay.
Public records fee schedule, but if we could do that. So then anybody can look it up and know what it's gonna cost.
Okay.
That's easy to do. We
Thank you.
can, so
Thank you.
basically, the board consensus, or, you know, essentially what I'm hearing is that out of the overall fee schedule that's publicly posted on our website, to pull out the public record fees and add it as a separate standalone link to this policy. Is that a fair
For my
recap?
please, yes,
Well, I heard it wasn't just yours.
yes.
No, actually, I think that would be a good thing. You want to make it easier for the public to access
Okay.
this information.
On also on these, there's a, I think, exhibit 1, 2, and 3, or was it numbers or letters, but are these all going to be, exhibits, I'm sorry, exhibits A, B,
And C.
And C. Are these all fillable PDF forms?
They're not in your packet there, but
Well,
they can be converted to that.
Okay, I think that would make it easier for the public also.
We have the software to do that.
Okay,
So
okay.
I'll do that.
Okay,
Okay.
that sounds good.
And on page,
That's a six-ringer, so I'm just gonna share.
what do you say?
It's a six-ringer on the fire. So. We'll be right back.
Is there anything else?
Yes. On page 5.
So that's Exhibit A.
Exhibit A, under, just before the lines where you can fill in, it says request will not be processed unless accompanied by the necessary information and deposit. Is that one that you just missed on the deposit? We removed the $25 or if required or something, or are you okay just to leave the language that way, or do you think it might?
I really think I did remove that, but let me take a look. Yeah, because the deposit's optional, and we only require deposits when we've done a calculation on that it's going to be significant.
So would you suggest that you change the wording a little bit on that or not?
Well, yeah, I think so, and then also on the flow chart we would eliminate that $25
Okay.
on the flow
Okay.
chart, and I feel like as you can see, there's a slight there was some duplication and some non-inclusion of some items even in this agenda. So I'll have to double check what I actually submitted and what got included in the packet, but those are my notes that we would not require a deposit initially.
So that would, to what is in the packet, that would have a minor change under Exhibit A in that one sentence, correct then? Or?
Yeah, and on the flow chart.
And the
If
flow chart,
yeah.
correct. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the new public records ordinance
I'll make that motion, Chair Gold.
or policy?
Is it in order?
It's
As amended?
as amended.
Yeah, there's an order to adopt the new
Oh, it is an
policy
order, not-
as
okay.
amended. Yeah.
Correct, as amended. I
And
would
it
second.
rescinds the old policy.
I would
of course.
second that.
Okay, any further discussion? Call for the question.
Aye.
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 Okay, and number 9, discussion and board direction and decision of the consolidation of dispatch.
So this is a continuation of your workshop that we had last week. The sheriff gave a presentation. What we're looking for is direction from the board to develop an agreement with the city of Brookings to share the cost of this $35,000 study by the University of Portland in order to ascertain what would be the impediments and benefits of consolidating dispatch. I would also hope information that the sheriff had shared last week, I'd also hope that the study would help guide us with our tower discussion. There's evidently a lot of material in my office about towers and replacements and the costs, and Louise and I will have to get together from the financial aspect, and I'm hoping that study would also help with guide us and make our decisions of how we're going to fund or how we're going to, what's the immediacy on this, because obviously that's the most important thing, is to make sure that the radios and the towers and everything still work.
So are we going to have any input as to what we want from this study?
So
Or-
the study's in your packet.
Yeah.
So it basically lists the plan would, and I can read some of it. Basically, develop the current profile system, the governance, the ordinance,
Page 76.
analyze current system demands, performance, propose scenarios on how to best operate, research state laws, regulations, identify industry products, best standards, prepare and deliver written reports, and it's a pretty detailed analysis. We definitely don't have the staff at Curry County to actually accomplish this.
Okay,
We don't have people to do that.
We would be paying half of this?
We'd be paying half. So what I would be looking for, and in your packet you'll see a motion in there, it says move to direct staff to develop an agreement between the City of Brookings and Curry County to jointly fund a $35,000 study regarding the consolidation of ditch dispatch services and bring back to a future board for approval. So basically, I'm just looking for, you know,
A motion to.
your commitment to basically say develop an agreement, and then you will have another, you know, crack at this when you have to approve the agreement.
Okay, so do we have a motion to move forward in developing an agreement?
I'll make that motion with discussion.
Okay,
I'll second for discussion.
okay, discussion?
We might, in your outline here, which was accompanying the City of Brookings letter, and I think you've gone over, we might want to add in there additionally about the towers to make sure that that's part of the agreement here. I think you picking up on that is very good, and I would figure out, looks like it'd be item number 11, Roman numeral. But I would sure add that, yes.
Any other discussion?
So you want me to amend the motion, or should we?
Well, the
consider that?
motion's out there, a second's out there, so
I
no
gotta
other
just vote on it
discussion?
now.
Okay,
So
call.
you don't agree that we need to add that in about the towers? Specifically as part of additional study? And not make that assumption?
No, I think direction is all, because you'll be able to approve the agreement, and so I'll talk to Janelle and make sure. So we're basically going to work on an agreement between the City of Brookings and us to make sure that we come to agreement what we both agree to. So we'll come back. I'll take your feedback and try to put that in.
Thank you. That's all I need.
Okay, any further discussion? Call for the question.
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks for clarifying, Madam Chair, that was 50-50. I might have missed that in there.
Okay, County Administrator, announcements. Vacancy, Coos Curry Housing Authority, term expiring January 3rd. Ambulance Service Area Advisory Committee, law enforcement position. Mountain Drive Special Road District term expires December 31st. August 15th, there's a general meeting at 10 a.m. in the Commissioner's Hearing Room. September 3rd is Labor Day. The county offices will be closed. September 6th, general meeting at 10 a.m. in the Commissioner's Hearing Room. So, yes.
I would also like to add a workshop for August 8th.
Okay.
So far, I just have one item on the agenda, basically dealing with Oregon Parks Service and a possible land swap, to see if you're interested. This has to deal with a Flores Lake land swap issue.
Okay, and then there's also possibly an executive session dealing with bargaining. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yep. So based on the negotiations that happened today, we probably would also have an executive session that day.
Okay. Any other announcements that we missed here? Okay, County Administrator updates. Administrator Schroeder.
Yes, let me just get the... In the interest of efficiency, what I'm proposing is just an administrative change. What we're looking at is changing how we do to save John Jesuit some time, because he struggles a lot of times. Some of the packets are, 300-400 pages long, and there's a lot of energy and many hours put together to manage all those documents, make one big one, and then put pages on them and come back. What I'm proposing is basically just coming up with a simple Google Share document. It's quick, just August 1st. You basically would have, you basically would just click on what you need. Here's your agenda, and then you could just go to the next item. We would have, it's like, here's your July 18th meeting. And so this one here, instead of having the 400-page document, these are all the items that are on there. And if citizens are interested in only a particular item, they would just pick that particular item. It would change basically the efficiencies within the department. We did this at a city where I was a city administrator at. So this is from city of Lake Elmo in Minnesota, and so basically the same thing, basically just having the same item. So I basically was just looking to see if there would be any opposition from the commissioners to move in this direction.
I think it's a great idea. It would be better for the public, much easier than scrolling down 400 pages to get to where you want to go, and more efficient for Mr. Jesuit. I think it's a win-win.
From a records retention standpoint, the information, let's say Google goes out of business, which I doubt, but you never know. And we need to plan for 30 years when we're retaining records. All the records will still be maintained, obviously, on the county servers. You know, so there'll still be a backup if Google crashes. So these are just more for distribution of stuff. It'll still be retained in the county.
Commissioner Huxley?
So this would be put out, this is a question, instead of the agenda as it is now and the agenda packet or whatever the term is. You know, when you go to the website, you download the agenda, which is essentially the public notice also, and then you have a second download where you can download the full packet that has the however many pages are part of the agenda. Is that correct?
Yeah, my recommendation would be that we put the agenda, just the first page, or just say the agenda, on as a PDF on the website, so people could just see that and download it from the website. And then if they want to go see the individual items, they'll just have a link right to this page here, and they can pick up the item which they want to see.
So when I keep hearing there's going to be all time saved, I'm not convinced of any time either direction being saved or more time, but at this point, but for the question, so then if a PDF file is created for each of these documents, clearly, they're individual documents. So there's been a creation of these documents.
Yep, that happens regardless, yes.
Well, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes there's just pages that are scanned, multiple pages, and all of a sudden you have a document now that has 2 or 3 or more different documents within it, but you just don't know it. It's just a whole bunch of pages could have different subjects. So that individual documents would be created, individual PDF files, then they would be uploaded somewhere through Google servers or to Google servers, correct?
Yep.
Would this be done basically about at the same time that this packet is done now and is out normally by Friday afternoon, but one single packet with a whole bunch of different files in it? Is that correct? Would that be is that the plan?
Yeah, so what would happen is right now when John, he gathers all these, the information from all the different departments. And what he has to do is basically take the Word documents and the PDF and then turn them into this 400-page document. And then he has to go back and re-edit and then he has to put page numbers on them and then re-edit the agenda to put the page numbers so you can see the page numbers on the agenda. And so that's the step that we'll be saving.
Okay,
that's trying to put those two together,
and
basically, and you should see John's computer trying to plow through, consolidating, 400 pages of high-res documentation. So that's a step you're saving. These could be loaded up as John gets them, and the link wouldn't be shared and wouldn't be public until Friday afternoon. So he would be able to put these things together. Once he uploads item number 7, he doesn't have to do it. One of the beauties is if there's a late edition, he doesn't have to edit the 300-page document. He just have to add in the real problem here is, let's say we have an error and we have to add something in. On a 300-page document, it's very, you have to basically take it apart, throw it in there, and then renumber everything to come up with that. That's this is just a more flexible system that I'm recommending.
But that's not what's done now. You just add a supplemental, for example, on this meeting, the public records thing that was an oversight and wasn't included. It was submitted but wasn't included.
Yeah. Well,
it wasn't put into the full packet.
Well, sometimes this happens behind the scenes on a Thursday afternoon. We think we're done.
Yeah.
And we're not done. And
But
we
in
tried
this
to do that.
example,
This
that
was an
wasn't the
oversight
case.
we didn't catch.
It was
yes.
just added as
Yeah.
a supplemental material.
Yeah.
Now, if a person didn't go to the website, they wouldn't know that. So where would they go? Where would somebody go for this, or to know that this was the place to go now? This
Well-
was the location. This server was the location.
Yeah, so it'd just be a link. There'd be just a link on the website that you just catch the link, yes.
Council Huddle?
Thanks. In your materials, Mr. Schroeder, you included a link to Lake Elmo. And I think if you go back to Lake Elmo's, it just shows, well, before you get to this, show how you get to this from their main website. And you're just saying it's a link, and I agree. It's just a link to an agenda it's identified as an agenda in minutes, and I think it would be, if I'm understanding you correctly, on our board website, we have agendas and minutes as a category you can click onto, and then we'll just have a day to click to it, and it seems pretty straightforward. If you could, kind of walk them through just from the main website how you get to agendas and minutes and how it works. But then the other question from a staff perspective, do I understand correctly you're not proposing any changes from staff's submittal of things to you all, to the Bach office? Staff will still follow that, and then
Yep.
you'll just do this behind the scenes.
Yep, and the law, so here's your, here's just, so you have your agenda, and everybody organizes their packets different and stuff like that, and how they do that, but this has come all the way from Minnesota, so it's really slow. And so basically here's all your packets, so here's their meeting, and you come right back to this. And so that's what you end up with.
So you go to a website, it says agenda and minutes, you find which body, Board of Commissioners, Planning Commission, Budget, whatever, and then you go to the date of the packet you want to look at, and you'll be able to look at item by item or full agenda, however you want to do it.
Yeah. Now, if there's just a single item, let's say, if you looked at if you look at their special meeting, so that's just a single page. They just put on one page. They didn't bother to upload it to Google because you're really not saving anything. You're doing the exact same work. So they just put it here. So they actually do both. So. So anyway, if there's no objections to this, I'm not really looking. It's not really an approval thing, but I want to make sure that you're aware of it. You're ultimately, in charge, and I want to make sure that everybody's comfortable with the direction I'm going with this.
Council Huddle?
Thanks. Just one last question, and again, for instance, on today's agenda, we had initially at the publication, there was an item that didn't get included in the publication. What you're saying is we'd probably have to let people know there was an addition in some way,
Yeah.
but that would just be put right back into this type of thing.
Right here, you could.
Okay.
Yeah. So you could just put it right here. It'd be very simple just to add it to it.
And then, is there going to be anything to address? For instance, it says 2 AGRSs. How are we going to, what's going to? I guess that'll just have to be the old process of someone having supervisory review function of all agenda preps for accuracy and repeatedness and all that stuff.
And I will say that is my ultimate responsibility. I'm the one that's supposed to give the final approval and review of that. The job has been very overwhelming as far as the workload, and some things don't get the attention that I wish I could give to it. So, but ultimately that's my, the buck stops with my desk.
Commissioner Huxley?
So if you go ahead with this, is there a significant amount of additional time required to set this up?
No, it's actually already set up. I mean,
So,
it took like
okay.
5 minutes. We're already there. All we have to do is just put it online.
If problems or issues are encountered, there won't be a significant time to take a step back to what we have
Nope,
currently.
I've been working with JJ to train him on this, so he's been practicing on what we have to make sure he's familiar with it, since I'm familiar with it already. And like I said, I've already put these 2 meetings on here. And then what we would do is, I would probably take them off so there's not confusion between the public, you know, where it sits. And so as we go forward, this is our website, or this is our login, and it goes to the Bach office. So you can see up in the corner there, that's the login. It's a generic email that has me, JJ, Huddle, and Brandt, I believe. It gets the email for the Bach office. So regardless of employee turnover, it goes to generic email address. So it's not reliant on me being here.
Okay. Commissioner Boyce?
Good, thanks.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple other items. Budget, we'll be advertising for a budget committee member. So Carl King's position has expired, and so we'll be looking for applicants for that. I'll put that on the website, and we'll be looking for applicants for that. And we did change the form for the committee members to a fillable PDF that John Jesuit has. So again, it makes it easier and quicker for people to make applications to the county for that position.
And so will that be done on all the committee applications so that they can go online and fill out the fillable PDF?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep,
that's
so
good.
it'll be a fillable PDF, and right now, basically, where it is they have to download it and then email it back to us.
Right.
I don't have an online version of that where basically they don't have to download it and do it. I can look into that, you know, and probably through the Google Drive probably would be.
Yeah,
something.
because I've heard people complaining about having to come up here or mail it in because.
Yeah, so that's
system
something we'll look into. I would be like totally surprised if that doesn't already exist, you know, within our Google documents that people could fill out and just submit.
Okay.
Something to learn.
Commissioner Huxley?
So is there going, is it a resolution that's used? Is that the vehicle for appointing members of the budget committee? Is it a resolution or an order? I don't.
Yeah, it'll be.
So is there going to be some document then correcting the existing document that has Carl King serving for 4 years? And then the second part of that question, will there be also a document that will correct the document that appointed the last committee member for 4 years?
So I had Jesuit look into this, and it says in the order that he looked up, it is basically his term expires on 2021. So according to our records, Carl King's position is the only one that needs to be corrected.
So
and what we're going to do is, regardless of who gets that term, the new order will just state that person will.
So, but Bill Ostrowski served in 2018. He served in May of 2018. He's going to serve in May. Let's just say that the hearings or meetings are in May, the budget hearings. He's going to serve in May of 2019.
Yeah.
He's going to serve in May of 2020. You have him expiring after May of 2021, so the math is still 4 years and not 3. And that was the, okay?
18, 19, 20, 20. You're right.
Okay. So we still have to do that also.
Okay, yeah. So we'll bring back and correct that order then.
I'm sure glad you guys got 4 fingers. Okay.
Oh,
All right.
wow. And this is the next budget is going to be.
Yeah, for the next budget. So we'll put that together with 2 orders, one to appoint somebody new, and if Carl's interested, I'm sure we would consider him. A couple other things I've been working on. So I basically shepherded with immense help from John Huddle and Brenda this ASA committee. So we basically had our committee meeting last night, and thank you to Jesuit for helping coordinate that. We're basically going to be coming back to you on the 15th with a recommendation for CalOrg to take over ASA 1. and that was effective basically on July 1st. They took that over, so we're going to be the emergency order. Then they'll have another order to take it over after the emergency order for August 1st, and then we're going to do an extension on that. So I appreciate the staff help with that. It's something I've never done before, but I was able to get that done yesterday, and so we're on track to make that be stable for the residents in North County.
Okay.
Which is a good thing. Interviewed building official individuals yesterday, so I'll be looking at hiring one of those individuals the next week or two for a new building official. Right now we're piecing it together with part-time and retirees, and obviously it's a position that the county has to have statutorily, so we'll be filling that position. I'll be working on the Consumption Tax Advisory Committee, looking at trying to generate more revenue for the county, and also working with the Fair Board on their issues. Met with Flores Lake, with Carolyn and the U.S. Parks person with the property they have up there. We're looking at doing a land swap, which I would like to come back on the 8th to see if there's board interest before either we or the state put more effort into this, to make sure there's at least interest before we do that. Dealing with code enforcement issues, visited a property and warned an individual, issued a warning letter, and I'm going back to revisit the property on the 10th and issue a citation if they're not into compliance with our health and environment nuisance ordinance. Been dealing with labor negotiations, visited the county fair, very impressed. It's a very nice county fair. It's just a good time was had by all, and I ended up buying a turkey at the market auction. So I have a nice turkey that somebody in the 4-H was gracious enough to take home.
Live or dead?
Alive.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, it's at the market auction.
Oh, I thought.
Yeah, where we sell the lamb and steers and pigs.
So you're going to become an Oregon farmer?
Well, no, it's somebody from 4-H is kind enough to take it home and butcher it for me, and so I don't have to do it at home. So I appreciate that. Had a planning meeting with a developer that wants to put in a small subdevelopment. And I think that's all I have for my updates.
Okay, thank you. So moving on, commissioner updates. Commissioner Boyce.
Mr. Jesuit, can we get our fire update there? I guess I could plan ahead, huh?
The mouse is over on the thing over there.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have asked you to do that.
Let's see if this puppy works.
While we're waiting there, attended a community meeting, fire meeting in Selma last night. Drove over and back, and the thickness of the smoke was just incredible. So we've been pretty fortunate here. I've been on radio to tactfully encourage different radio stations, encourage folks to keep traveling here, that we're in pretty good shape right now. And I think that that's going to be okay, and I believe it'll last. The Klondike, formerly the Klondike Granite, bottom left. There was word going out yesterday that it was only 3 miles from the Taylor fire. Picture the Rogue River right above basically 12 o'clock. They just closed part of the Rogue River, not the wild section, thank goodness, because that would have greatly affected Curry County through Paradise Lodge, Jerry's Jet Boats, into the wild section, etc. So between these two fires, they look like they're fairly close to the same size. Of course, the Taylor's a little bit bigger. Combined acreage, after the report this morning, is pushing about 46,000 acres. The Oregon Department of Forestry essentially surrounded the Taylor fire on 3 sides, and the primary sides. Again, keep in mind, Rogue River's right at the top of the Taylor fire. On the south, they had a good anchor point, and we're even starting to mop up. Then the Forest Service took the fire over, and they're presently, I think, after going to the Selma meeting last night, convinced that they're doing everything possible to put this fire out. There's about, I think between the two fires, there's about 900 firefighters. Retardant, because of the smoke, visibility has been somewhat of an anticipated block there. Back to the Klondike fire, that is growing 1,000 acres since it started 19 days ago. It is at 19,000 acres. It is growing primarily towards the east and not so much the north, which could affect Agnes. Still about 10.5 miles from the community of Agnes, still about 25 miles from Gold Beach, and about 30 miles from Brookings. But it is growing. And it is in the Biscuit Burn, which really adds, it's 18 years of fuel, brush, not much in the way of evergreens. Unfortunately, the forest has not returned, which is, of course, evidence that the philosophy of the radical environmental community that it'll come back to natural forest. No, we just keep burning it. This is the 5th major fire that we have had. So in concluding, Madam Chair, what I believe is that you see an entirely new approach and attitude towards fighting fires in the Curry County Wilderness Kalmiopsis, and I'm happy to report that I believe they're making a tremendous effort on this. It is horrible terrain, which is hard to get firefighters in, and then you always have to have the plan of getting them out. Today's pretty critical. The next few days is going to be lower temperatures. So the final thing here is there was a rumor. The reason I decided to spend the time and effort to go to Selma is the rumor was that they were almost going to be happy to let these fires grow together. And I wanted to confirm that that was not accurate, and I'm happy to say as well that no, they want to keep these fires apart. But if the Taylor fire grows any more north, it will completely shut down Hellgate excursions, and they do sometimes 800-900 people per day on their 3 different trip options. So right now the distance between the 2 fires is still 6 miles. It's probably 5.5 after last night. So compared to the Chetco Bar fire and how it affects our citizens, it's too early to tell, but my hunch is I think we're going to be okay. As you look on the west side, it's into the Chetco burn. There's not a lot of fuels. There are a lot of grasses. There are various little oases of timber pockets that did not get burned in the Chetco Bar fire, so that's certainly susceptible. And then the only other thing I would add is between those 2 fires is some magnificent forest that likewise, even though that's out of Curry County, it's just an incredible area, and we're really hoping that we don't lose any part of that. So next, the sirens just went off. That's every day at 11, or excuse me, once a week at 11 o'clock, this tsunami test. I forgot that, and so after last Friday night, I was a little concerned. Maybe it was Saturday, I don't remember now, but former Commissioner Labonte reminded me, and that was good to be updated on that. Commissioner priorities, we've had public testimony. Certainly I've been saying very consistently over this last 18 months where are our priorities, and it's disheartening for me. I submit that we have got very little accomplished towards 11 specific issues here that are greatly affecting our county. And I'll go through them fairly quickly, but nothing has changed. And again, I'm sad to report that. So I have questions from my board members on how we can hopefully team up and maybe start a new day, because these issues are growing and they need attention. Administrator Clark, I'm sorry, mentioned additional revenue and the option there. Very happy to have him involved in that, and I think we have some very good public input. This is something I've been trying to just get the concept off the ground that we could ultimately get before the voters at some point in time. We're looking at a lot of different things and other resources to improve public safety, security, quality of life, and other urgent issues. Certainly towards the top is the South County Emergency Room. I need both of your help on that to find $1.2 million needed for Curry Health Network. Brookings is currently the largest city in Oregon that does not have emergency services.
They don't have a hospital.
Well, they have neither, and that's a great concern to me, and I think it needs attention, and so I'm going to be challenging you and Commissioner Huxley to jump right in on that, because 1.2 million, yes, is a lot of money, but it's a drop in the bucket when we have a $58,000 budget in this county. Yes, only 6 or 8 of that, whatever, comes back to the general fund. But that is absolutely critical. Our median age, as you know, is 56 in our county, and so that's part of our economic development too. People wanting to move here, the first things they look at is public safety, law enforcement, and healthcare. Communication towers, you know, John Hitt, certainly Council Huddle, and now Administrator Schroeder working on the long-term funding, critical repair, maintenance, and long-term replacement of those. That is, I don't know, what's the most important between those two? South County Emergency Room, and then sudden oak death. This is an 18-year issue in this county. We're trying very hard to keep it isolated to Curry County. It is just a powerful disease that is growing, it is expanding, and we're getting I reported last general meeting that we have 2.3 million combined between the state and federal. I'm going to ask for your help, everybody, to find even 10,000 that the county can make a contribution, and as soon as possible, if that's possible, and show the whole world that we're taking this very, very seriously. It's moving towards Rogue River, and it kills 4 different kinds of oaks, except for, thank goodness, the white oaks, which is also a very sacred tree culturally and within the Native American community. Veterans, mental health issues, you know, we had Connie Hunter and Gordon Clay speak on that today. It's just growing, and so we have to dig deep and understand our responsibilities and problem solve. And I think too, it's a great opportunity to bring this community together, as is the emergency room facility. On the SEIU negotiations, I'm just encouraging the board to do everything possible, reasonable and fair for both sides. I want to avoid the first potential strike in Curry County history and demonstrate to our employees that they have great value. The invasive species, my goodness, the gorse in Norse County, Himalaya blackberries all over Oregon, but they just thrive in this moist, warm climate of southwest Oregon. The pampas grass, Scotch broom, and there's a dozen non-native species that are spinning a lot of heads in Oregon, but we seem to grow the best, the greatest trees in the world, but also those invasive species seem to grow. Economic development, to try and overcome the highest unemployment rate in the state of Oregon of all 36 counties, and create atmospheres where businesses want to stay and where new businesses want to come here. Old businesses want to stay and new businesses come. Another big one, federal forests and public lands management. I feel like this is my personal cause, my life goal, to change the policies that are devastating our county and the detrimental air and water quality, certainly the fish and wildlife habitat, smoke every year. I mean, my heart aches for the people in the valley right now. To see it up close and personal last night in the little community of Selma, it's just staggering. And then I have another map here. Perhaps some of you have seen this, but I'll spare you the Oregon map, but, oh wait, all I gotta do is go right here, right? There's the fires in California. I mean, this is jumpy. Anyway, 900 homes in the Carr fire here, and Oregon has that dense of fire locations. The only other states that are even close to Oregon, California is Alaska. Emergency travel policy amendment. Would the two of you consider an emergency amendment to that travel policy for times such as this? You know, we adopted this in November of 17. Of course, I was in opposition, but would you consider an amendment to that policy not on the assumption, but the concern that this might go to, you know, I just don't know where we're headed. We still have a full 6 weeks to go. I'm very concerned. Am I saying the sky is falling? Certainly not. But I'm going to be watching it 24/7. And, you know, like I went to Selma. What did that cost the county last night? $28 probably, something like that. So would you consider that, Commissioner Gold?
Well, let's just say the travel policy already has exceptions there, and all you need to do is come and ask for specific exceptions. So we're not going to change the travel
So what
policy.
if I can't get a hold of the two of you? You're not going to change the travel policy, even in the strict approach of an emergency situation like we could be headed for, and like we had at the Checo Bar fire.
If there is an emergency, I'm sure we could look at that.
But we'd have to come to you first.
That's, yes.
And what if you're not available, or?
I
okay,
will
you've
be
answered
available.
my question.
I will be available.
Last one, thank you. Curry County's reputation, I'm going to ask you both to work hard to repair that image around Oregon. You know, if we don't, the example would be the failure to attract and hire additional deputies, certainly code enforcement officers, and two, we don't want to lose we're up to 91 now, people we've lost in the last 3.5 years. And a lot of these are very qualified people. So here we are trying to do our job and find and keep good employees. And, you know, have we had a code enforcement officer apply yet? Potential applicant, Administrator Schroeder?
I have not checked yet.
Okay, but as of yesterday?
I have not. I've not followed up with Julie on that.
Okay.
I know somebody had talked to me a few weeks ago about applying. I don't know if they did or not, so I have not followed up with the code enforcement officer.
So, okay, but the point is, we're not getting a lot of applicants. Fair to say?
I would say that's a traditional thing in HR here.
Okay, but just that for all positions, or just the code enforcement position?
No, I think all positions, it's a struggle to
Thank
recruit
you.
people to come here for a number of reasons. Well, you know, one, you're in the pay, and I think housing is tough to find. There's other issues that qualify people that limit our applicants.
Yeah, I just submit that good points, but it's the reputation we have around the state, and yes, the pay and instability within the county. That's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm next. Just a little update on the fire. I went over to Medford last Friday, and smoke is pretty great over there, but I also noticed as I was traveling that someone had the audacity to throw out a cigarette. So just blew my mind. So anyway, another thing on the travel policy, I've been doing a little bit of researching on this. There are many other counties that have travel policies, some more stringent than ours, $500. So just to let you know, I think there needs to be limits on what we do here. So that's all I have to say. Next, Mr. Huxley.
Thank you. There were much confusion came in last week. This has to do with code enforcement and pig pens and pigs that live in pig pens, actually.
Literal pigs.
Okay, literal pigs,
Oh.
okay. But there were some calls that had come in last week. There were some, didn't get the right names or the right phone numbers, but the long and the short, there were apparently, I communicated that. I'm just looking at the email there that I'd sent both the administrative assistant Jesuit and Administrator Schroeder. One of the individuals that I ended up speaking with, and his name is John Stover, S-T-O-V-E-R. He lives at 98041 Hallway Drive, space 17 in Harbor. It's Tonopah Village, apparently. I don't know how to pronounce it, T-O-N-O-P-A-H. It's another Hamilton Lane type issue. It's another one of those. I did pass this on to, again, in the email, spoke with him. I did commit that Administrator Schroeder would at least contact him in the email that I sent. Administrator Schroeder would contact him this week after we basically addressed the the issue here, and this is all I'm addressing. I'm not going any further. I did explain to him that the county can't fix everything in one fell swoop. It didn't wasn't created in a fell swoop, but at least I think they're working in the right direction now, which is a good thing. There apparently was another individual also who had called in. I don't know what had occurred there. His name was John Yost. I don't know if he had spoken with Commissioner Gold or
I spoke
not.
to him.
Ultimately, was that on, you know, I'm assuming, well, I'm not going to assume anything, whether it was on the same type of issue or not. I have not called him at this point because now I know he also called. But again, code enforcement, we can't fix everything right away because it didn't happen overnight. It's not going to be fixed, but I think the county is definitely going in the right direction versus the wrong direction. Administrator Schroeder.
Since we're on the subject, so we basically, John Jesuit and I and Brenda have created a tracking spreadsheet so we can track calls that come in and make sure we're getting back to people and addressing them. I created a fillable form, complaint form. So the first process, and I'll speak to all three commissioners, if you do get somebody that calls up and has a complaint, John, direct them to John. John will send out the complaint form, fillable PDF. They can fill that form out, email it back to us. We'll put it on the spreadsheet so that, when I have time to go out and visit, because I have the authority to do this, but what I'm really trying to do is make sure that we have the policy and procedures down pat, so when we get a code enforcement officer, one, everything is known for what they need to do, and two, there's a list of things for them to do.
Okay, so you're speaking strictly about these code enforcement violations?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. So that what I'm asking the commissioners to do, because you'll get calls from people, just like you have been. Direct them to John. They'll go on the tracking sheet. John will send out the form. The form will come back. We'll load it in there. When I have time to visit and take pictures and to deal with warning letters or citations, the whole process, I'll be doing that as I find time to do that.
Okay, well, I had a call on a completely different issue, and I kind of directed it to Council Huddle. So, anyway.
Okay.
Stover, excuse me.
Commissioner Boyce?
Stover's primary concern was vehicles, right? Several vehicles.
I've not seen the complaint form or talked to him yet, so I'm still waiting.
That's a great approach. And,
I want to get people to just send it in writing, and then we'll address it.
Commissioner Huxley, have you finished your report?
Well, no, I'll just finish, and I will give the electronic document to Administrator Schroeder with some file links on them that are very similar to what was provided to Administrator Assistant Jesuit and put on the website last year when we had the Chetco Bar fire. But these will be fire links to the National Interagency Fire Center, which allow the end user, if you will, because there's an end user versus, state employees have different access. But that website link, and it will also show the additional links to where you can get a lot more information about these fires if you so choose. Then you will get in these updates, these email updates that come out daily. And I say it's the same site, the same home address site that begins with that, and then you click into Northwest, or you can go to Oregon, you can go to Washington, you can go to the hottest fires is what they do, and that's where they call it an interagency. But it's a great link. It doesn't, the home link doesn't change, the others do, because as their time goes and they're contained, they drop them off. It's not like everything is on there forever. It's not, but it's got some great information, and all of theirs are the documents that you can download if you choose. They have scales so that number one, true north, number two, how many miles you're looking at. Where a lot of maps that they'll create on these fires, you see a map, but you don't know if you're looking at 1 mile or 10 miles or 50 miles. You have no idea.
So bottom line, you want this on our website?
Yeah, this
so
just as it was on the Chetco Bar fire was the
same. More easily.
But I'll get that to to Administrator Schroeder.
That web link, I actually changed the website. So on your quick links on the side, on the right-hand side, we put a tab in there. It's called Community Information. We got a request from a nonprofit to put some information on there. They have a community calendar. And so I would invite people, if they have, you know, community nonprofits, you know, the Red Cross, the food shelf, those other types of things. I'm going to start putting that on that section so people can just see the community help that we have to offer citizens here. And I'll put this fire link on that same community information tab.
Yeah, I just think it's important for the website to be easy for people to use and accessible, so
Yeah, so
that's good.
Yes, when you see it, we kind of changed it so it says community information. So that should be all encompassing. So there's some links to the cities under there. There's links to the newspapers and the radios, but I'll put the nonprofit information and community help up top so people can see what's out there for, you know, like say the Red Cross if they need help or something. So.
Okay.
That's
Any
it.
other?
Thank you.
Okay. Since we've gone through everything on the agenda, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you for coming.
I told you we'd done by lunch.
I know. Good job.